Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, as today we're going to be talking about the Edmonton Oilers prospects, as the yearly thing we've been doing is doing a prospect pyramid for all the Oilers prospects, which I am so pumped to do it once again this year and talk about all the new prospects that have been added to the pyramid. And not just that, some of the guys that went absolutely just hot throughout the year, like, Mateo Petrov, Car Savoy. We also got Ryan Fanta and the new prospect in Reed Schaefer. And, a decent amount of our prospects came off the pyramid as well. So it's definitely a little bit of a weaker pyramid, I think, than what it was last year. I think we were a little bit more heavy in the tier 3 and same with the tier 4. This year, it's a little bit more downgraded, and there's a lot more people down in tier 5, just because of the fact that we haven't had, very high picks over the past few years. Maybe a first and then, maybe third and a fourth is really the best we've been getting. So before we get into all this, though, guys, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. It'll be very much appreciated there, boys. So let's get into talking about here with the Edmonton Oilers prospect pyramid and talk right off the get-go about all the players that are coming off the pyramid here, which are a pretty good amount. We have a lot of the guys that were high up on the pyramid list, some of the guys that were down at tier 5 that were probably going to become anything at all, did have some upside, just didn't pan out. So let's get right into it. And the very first guy that's coming off the pyramid here is Stuart Skinner. Now, you guys will probably ask, why did you take Skinner off the list and not, Philip Broberg, who played 23 games? Well, Skinner is still probably, I think he's still eligible to be a rookie this upcoming season. The reason why I did it was because Skinner has already, played 2 years in a row now. Skinner played last year in 21. I know he only played 1 game, but yet he was still in an Edmonton Oilers uniform. And this year he is punched in to be that backup goalie for Jack Campbell. And, there's not really any competition for him. With Broberg, I see there's a little bit of competition with Cuckoo and Nemalainen. So you could say that, he hasn't really completely bought his spot, and that's the same goes with Dylan Holloway, but he hasn't really played any NHL games, really. So let's get into the rest of the list. We also got Tyler Benson up on there as well. Had a decent year for the Edmonton Oilers, played a bulk of the games to take him off the list. Yeah, he was okay. Definitely not what I exactly thought he was going to live up to be. We put him at tier 3 and hasn't really found that offensive potential in the NHL, which is really unfortunate. Will we see him really be a big guy? I don't believe so. Honestly, with the way that we've seen him in the NHL, he had a really tough time generating offense, and maybe it'll give him, maybe it'll take time, but I really just see him maybe being a fourth liner AHL for the rest of his career. I could be wrong, but, from the games that we've seen a lot from Tyler Benson, he was underused under Dave Tippett, but even then, with Jay Woodcroft, he still didn't look, super amazing. Kirill Maximov, Philip Berglund, and Ostap Safin all showed some potential here and there, but we're all guys that I threw down at tier 5 and all guys that are now released from the Edmonton Oilers and not part of the team anymore. Cooper Marody, who I had some upside about, but never really panned out. I kind of overrated him, I think, a little bit over the past few years as well. The last year, I put him in tier 4, and definitely was not the guy that we expected him to be. Mostly just an AHLer, but he signed off with Philadelphia. And then also another big loss is Kunavolov, but we did replace him with Fanta. Kunavolov was still more prestigious, but Kunavolov had a really rough time in the AHL, just was not putting up great numbers compared to what he was putting up in the K, and now he's going to be heading back off to the KHL, so unfortunate, but sometimes, those Russian prospects really just don't pan out very well for you. So let's get into the pyramid and let's talk about all the prospects and get into tier 1, which, of course, you guys know, tier 1, nobody for the Edmonton Oilers. We don't got any Bedards. We don't got any McDavids. We don't got any franchise, guys that are going to take control of that tier 1, spot there. And that's what you're kind of expecting out of a team that is trying to go for the Stanley Cup, the big old Stanley Cup and competing for the playoffs every single year. You're probably not going to be seeing very many players up at tier 1, but we'll move on to the next one, which is tier 2, which we do have 2 very nice prestigious prospects here with both Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. So we'll first of all talk about Dylan Holloway in his past season this year. He played a good bulk of his game for the Bakersfield Condors. Of course, this year he was, injured with that thumb. He had a surgery, which is, brings up some concern with how well will his shot, be over the next little bit? That's going to be a big question. But Dylan Holloway started off real hot in the AHL, kind of quieted down near the end of the season. Still did quite well, throwing up 4 points in 5 games in the playoffs, and during the regular season had 22 points in 33 games. Did get 1 game in the playoffs against the Avs as well. Didn't look too bad. Didn't play a whole lot of ice time, but I'm really excited to see what Dylan Holloway will bring. He's just that perfect complementary type of player who has a lot of speed, great vision. We've seen that a lot against the Bakersfield Condors, and his skating's amazing. Like, it's so funny how it's so close in comparison to Taylor Hall. I was actually watching a video where Holloway's skating compared to Taylor Hall's power skating is just so similar. It's actually fucking crazy how similar skaters they are. So I'm really excited to see what Dylan Holloway will be, especially in the future, because Dylan Holloway looks like he'll be a really good prospect, and I'm really liking his upside right now. There's a lot to like about Dylan Holloway's game with his physicality, his speed. His shot's still something that needs to be worked on, but his passing is absolutely amazing, especially since he got to play with Cole Caulfield there in Wisconsin, and he just looked absolutely amazing for that team, and I'm really excited to see what he'll be able to do. For Philip Broberg, he played, a good bulk of games for the Edmonton Oilers this past year, 23 games, and looked quite well in that spot. For the Condors, he posted 23 points in 31 games. Didn't play too bad in the playoffs for them as well, and looked quite nice. He's a great two-way guy, plays really strong defensively. He's shown some good offensive upside, as well as, of course, shown comparisons to Oscar Kleppbaum over the past few years. We've talked about this guy a lot, and how I think he most likely will have a spot on the team, and this will probably be his last year being on this prospect pyramid most likely this year, which will make tier 2 look very, very bland over the next few years most likely, because we won't be seeing, another prospect like Holloway or Broberg probably for the next little bit. But, these two guys are guaranteed NHLers. They're going to look great, and I'm really excited to see their potentials. Broberg could be, a great 3-man, maybe even a number 2 type of guy. With Dylan Holloway, you could definitely see him almost guaranteed being up in the top 6, playing on the wing of either McDavid or Draisaitl. Our future is really bright with these two guys here in Holloway and Broberg, but we'll move on to tier 3. Now, this is, we got one guy that, needs a lot of work for sure this year after having a rough year. Raphael Lavoie just did not have himself a year, but alongside of him is also Xavier Bergault. And then the breakout star this year, which is Mateo Petrov, going from tier 5 all the way up to tier 3. And we're going to be getting into Mateo Petrov. We might as well just get into this guy right now. Mateo Petrov, like, what a fucking star I think we picked up here, man. Holy crow. So he was in the MHL, not doing too bad, was struggling there in the World Juniors, under 18s, only had 1 point in 4 games, 42 points in 58 games. In this past season, he played in the OHL, and he threw up 90 points in 63 games. His NHL expectancy has jumped exponentially. Like, Mateo Petrov has really taken the world by storm lately and is just looking amazing. This upcoming season, he'll be playing for the Bakersfield Condors as well. So this will be a big testament to see if Mateo Petrov will be that guy. Is he going to be a guy that could, stay in tier 3 and continue to maybe even move up? I really, really like the upside of Mateo Petrov. His shot is bloody amazing. He's a great skater. There's a lot to like about Mateo Petrov, and his potential is just limitless, I feel, especially watching a lot of clips from Mateo Petrov this past season. I see a player that has a lot of offensive upside. He is just a crazy good offensive player, and the way that he played there for North Bay is showing me that maybe he can take that next step. Now, the biggest thing is can he do that in the AHL and play really good for Bakersfield? I think you're going to see him struggle a little bit this upcoming season, but I think after that, he'll show some bright moments. And we'll talk about another guy that did really good in the queue, but really didn't play that great this past season, which was Raphael Lavoie. Now, this has been a guy that's been battling inconsistency throughout most of his career, and this year he really showed it. He played great under Jay Woodcroft, and once Jay Woodcroft got promoted up to the Edmonton Oilers, he really struggled with Colin Kolk and just could not really find his game. He was really out of position in a lot of plays. He's looking a little sloppy out there, just really wasn't himself. I'm still going to bank on Lavoie, though, being a good player. This was his second, his first full year in the AHL. 56 games, he had 26 points. I still think he'll bounce back. I think this was a rough year for Lavoie without a doubt. But I feel like this is going to be kind of a big year for Lavoie, because if he doesn't bounce back and play really good this upcoming season, you're really going to see him not be very likely to be an NHLer. It's really going to be up to him on how he's going to decide what he's going to be able to do next. Is he going to perform great this year, or is he going to continue to struggle under the new coach there for the Bakersfield Condors? So I think for Lavoie, the reason why I kept him here at tier 3 was because his expectancy the year before this was absolutely amazing. He showed a lot of upside, and so I'm still having that firm belief that Lavoie will continue to produce and be the prospect that we were hoping he could be. So that's why I'm keeping him here. And then up next, we got Xavier Bergolt. A year after we drafted the guy over Jesper Wallstedt. This was a guy that was in tier 3 last year and is still at tier 3 once again this year. Played really good for Shawinigan. 75 points in 43 games, 22 points in 16. He's going to be a big pivotal guy for the Bakersfield Condors. You're going to be seeing him a lot. Once again, great shot, great offensive upside here with Xavier Bergolt, who does play a pretty, little bit of a physical game as well. I was a real big fan of Bergolt during the Memorial Cup, but he's just that type of player that really does a lot of good things out there. He's a really creative player. He's a right-handed guy who could play a little bit of center. He's just that type of guy that, we need in the prospect system. So I'm a real big fan of Xavier Bergolt, and a really good tier 3 here, honestly. It's definitely shortened up compared to what it was last year, where we had Dmitry Samorukov, Benson, and Kunavalov, which Samorukov has, fell down a little bit. Benson and Kunavalov coming off the books. So let's jump right into tier 4. So let's jump here into tier 4, which in this tier we got Dmitry Samorukov, Ryan Fanta, Reed Schaefer, Carter Savoy, Tyler Tullio, and Jake Chiasson. Now, in this tier, you're probably going to be, why is Savoy and Tullio not up with Mateo Petrov? Mateo Petrov just had an insane level type of season compared to what Savoy and Tullio had. Tullio had a good season in general for him as well, but he's 20, and he did, the same amount of points that Mateo Petrov did, while Petrov was like 19. So I still think it's very impressive what Mateo Petrov was able to do this past season. But still, I really do like Savoy and Tullio, but they're kind of like fringe top 6 type of players. There's still a lot to work with those players for them to really go up to that next tier. With Mateo Petrov, I feel like he has a lot of those attitudes. And one guy that did fall on the tier list was Dmitry Samorukov this year. He fell down one tier on the pyramid this year, and that was mostly because he had a really rough year, I felt, for the Bakersfield Condors. He just really, when he came down to the NHL, really did not look like himself for sure. He had a really rough game, and I think Dave Tippett really didn't help him with that, at all. But he just didn't really have a great year coming back to North America this year. I think it was a hard adjustment. He still didn't look too bad. But I feel like with Dmitry Samorukov now, I feel like we're seeing, a top 6 level defenseman more than a top 4. Maybe it's going to take a little bit more time for Samorukov to maybe take that next step. But with this 1-year contract I think Kenny gave him, I think this is kind of like the last hurrah. We're giving him that last contract to see how well he'll do, and if he takes that next step, then perfect. But I'm not 100% sure Dmitry Samorukov. A lot of his expected numbers are really not looking great as an expected NHLer, so I'm not too excited about Dmitry Samorukov. I was once before, but I'm not too sure about his upside anymore. We'll move on to Ryan Fanta, who there's not a lot of information on this guy, as this was a college signing this past season, but I think he has some really good upside this past season. He played for the Minnesota Duluth. He had a .929 save percentage with a 1.83 goals against average, which was absolutely amazing. Next year, he'll be with the Bakersfield Condors and basically be the main guy alongside of Oliver Rodrigue and Calvin Pickard. So this is a really big chance here for Fanta to really take that big step here, right? He got a big contract, 2 years. He's going to see if he can prove himself and be that, that future guy here for the Edmonton Oilers. And I'm really intrigued to see if this free agent, this college signing will be something good for the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm really excited to see how well Fanta will pan out. Reed Schaefer's the new draftee that we got at 32nd overall this past draft. Big physical guy. A lot of people are comparing him to Zach Kassian. His most comparable, though, is an Alex Kilroy. A guy that plays very, very physical, not afraid to hit, has an amazing shot, threw up 32 points in 66 games, is one of the fastest rising guys throughout the entire draft this past season. Wasn't expected to be drafted until later on in the second round, but the Oilers dove at him, picked him at the 32nd overall selection. And I mean, this is a guy that could really be a potential steal. You know, he played really good for the Seattle Thunderbirds this past season. You know, threw up 58 points in 66 games compared to his first year with the Thunderbirds. He only had 2 points in 18 games. So this was a guy that just all of a sudden just started popping off and really showed that offensive upside that he had. Still needs to work on his scheme, but real physical guy, plays great, has a really good shot, and is something to be excited about. He has that fringe top 6 type of potential, but you most likely will be seeing him as like a top 9 type of player. Next up, we got Carter Savoie. Carter Savoie is, you know, one of my guys that I absolutely fucking love. If I could, I would throw him up even higher just with the amount I love Carter Savoie. But, you know, I can't be doing that. I got to hold my favorites back and not, you know, be so hopeful on Savoie. But there's still a lot of hope with Savoie. Savoie is that type of player that has a lot of upside, and he just needs to take advantage of it. This upcoming season, he'll be playing for the Bakersfield Condors, which I think will be a challenge for the guy. He's a smaller dude, 5'9", 179 pounds, was able to rip it up there in the NCAA this past season. 45 points in 39 games, but didn't really get to see a big rise out of Savoie. You know, he was producing a lot of goals, which is good. He has an amazing shot. The guy is just absolute stellar with his shot. So I still think there's a lot of upside here with Mateo Petra, or with Carter Savoie, I meant. But with him, it's like he could be a really good, probably top 6 guy, but there's still a lot of room to be working with here with Savoie. I see him as a fringe top 6 type of guy, but most likely a top 9 kind of goal scorer, be really good on the power plays, the way that I'm seeing Carter Savoie. But I still believe the sky is the absolute limits here with Carter Savoie, but that's why he's going down at tier 4, because there's still a lot of question marks with this young guy. And amazing offensive guy, still needs to work a bit on his skating, I think, but it's definitely showing some improvement over the past few years. Next up, we'll be talking about Tyler Tullio. He had an amazing season there with the Oshawa Generals, very comparable to, of course, the Brendan Gallagher, a very annoying player. Goes out there and is being an absolute pest. Played really good for the Oshawa Generals this year at 86 points in 65 games. Really just finding more of that offensive touch. Could play really well defensively as well, and is just an absolute amazing player to watch, and another intriguing prospect to see come up the pipeline. Jake Jason, this is a guy that hasn't got a whole lot of playing time, but is a guy that, I mean, you could be really excited about. Really good two-way guy. Has that kind of offensive upside as well. This is what kind of Dauber has to say. He's a bit raw at this point. Plays a gritty, tenacious style. Good shot, makes smart passes in the zone. Good complementary winger on a scoring line, which he really is. He's a good, I mean, not really great defensively, I guess, but he's definitely, he loves to hit. He's kind of a physical player, but hasn't had a whole lot of games. The past 2 seasons, he's only been combined to playing 40 games, but the guy's almost been a point per game all out of those 2 seasons as well. So I think there's a little bit of upside with Jake Jason, and I'm excited to see what will happen this upcoming season, especially if he does get a full season underneath of his books there for the Brandon Wheat Kings. So hopefully he can, you know, play a full season. I don't think he's really been injured. I think it's just because of COVID. Oh, yeah, and a little bit injured as well for one of the seasons as well. So hopefully we can get a healthy season out of Jake Jason and really see what his potential is worth there for the Brandon Wheat Kings. So I'm interested to see what he will be able to do in this upcoming season. So next up, we're going to be talking about Tier 5, which we're not going to be talking a lot about these players because there's a lot of them, but we'll kind of touch on a few of them. Marcus Niemelainen, you know, really good, you know, looked like he could be a good 7th defenseman, you know, good depth defenseman, physical, but I don't think he's going to be anything too special here for the Edmonton Oilers. Then we got Michael Kesselring. He's another mad prospect, could really pad out. Depends on another season there with Bakersfield Condors. You got Philip Kemp, Vincent Desharnais, 2 big, burly defensemen that still have a lot to work on. I really don't see them. I could see them being players like a Marcus Niemelainen, where they could be like 6'7" type of defenseman, where you could see him maybe playing like 40, 50 games a season. Oliver Rodrigue, Maxim Berzikin, Thomas Mazzario, really like him. I think he's an amazing offensive, presence. Skylar Brendamore, Shane LeChance, really Shane LeChance might not even have a chance to play in the NHL, but we'll see. Maxim Dezikin, Jeremiah Lindwell, Joe Mata. He played really well in the World Juniors. A very intriguing prospect to look at, especially he played a lot there in Finland. Played really well defensively and was showing a bit of offensive upside. Luke Musenberger played a little bit for Team German, and every time I seen him, I thought he was a really good shutdown defenseman. Nikita Yeseviz, not very much known about him. Maximus Wanner might not, amazing name, but once again, might not be ending up to be too much. And then Samuel Olsson, not too much information on him either. But there's Tier 5 guys to be excited about. From Tier 5, Yoel Mata, Marcus Niemelainen most likely will be coming off the tier list because I think he's going to be playing a decent bulk of this year as well. But there is your prospect pyramid, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely a bottom-heavy prospect pyramid, and especially if Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg play a decent amount of games this upcoming season, the top of the tier list is going to start looking a lot, weaker here in this pyramid. So, but that's just the way she goes. When you're trying to be a competitive, team trying to compete for the cup, a lot of the, top pyramid will most likely start to dwindle and dwindle more. So I'm still excited with a lot of these prospects. Bergolt, Mateo Petrov, there's a lot of intriguing prospects to take a look at. But that is the prospect pyramid for the year 2022-23, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. It'll be very much appreciated, and I hope you guys are ready for some hockey to be back, as we're about a month away to be back to watching some NHL hockey, and I am super pumped about that. So for now, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.